Alright, all you graveyard shift racers out there, welcome back to Under the Radar. And this week's Stunts of the Week goes to none other than Vinewood on Fire with their stunt Bike Slide at Sandy Shores Airfield. And also goes to Fraudly Brand with their said stunt, Powerline Stunt. And the reason why these two stunts made it in for the Stunt of the Week, well, if anybody's crazy enough to power slide over Sandy Shores Airfield without getting hit by an airplane, it's worthy to be mentioned for the Stunt of the Weeks for this week. And of course, the reason why what we mentioned the second stunt, anybody crazy enough to try to thread the needle through a power line while it's still active, yeah, definitely worthy of being mentioned during this said show. And according to the maestro, not much room for error during both of those stunts because they both could have gotten equally killed during them. And speaking of things that leaves no margin for error as well, I think it's time for us to get ready to rev our engines to check out some cool tracks for this week as we go into a very special Iridian milestone edition of the GTA Online Top 5 Tracks of the Week. And the first track that we have up comes from the creator Rockstar Scoalclub with their said track, AV Spiral X Joker. And this track, the reason why we picked it for this week, not only because of the crazy oversized spiral that's included during it, but the fact that it's a makeshift point-to-point race, and also there's a high possibility of running into your friends during this track as well. So the only tip of advice we have for you fans out there for this Batman and Robin like Joker spiral you'll have to take on is to make sure you watch out for falling cars at a moment's notice. Also, don't get tripped up on that final checkpoint and head backwards instead of heading forwards. And what do I mean by that, folks? Well, the second you grab that checkpoint, turn around immediately and don't go any more forward toward the end of that track, because if you do, you will fall off and it will cost you during this very race. And the next track that we have up comes from the creator Genopa with his said track, G Turbulence Oval. And the reason why in the world we picked this track for this week, besides the fact that you can use any car under the sun with the exception of sports and utility cars, it's also the fact that this is not your traditional NASCAR oval-like track with a small lip on this track included with it as well. Nice! And the only tip of advice we have for you race fans out there is if you're one of those type of people who slipstreams behind their opponent, be very careful on that lip, because if you slipstream, you will fly above them, and there's a high possibility of you landing right on top of them depending on what type of vehicle you race in. So yeah, be careful where you land and be careful where you slipstream during this said race. And the next track that we have up comes from the creator Warlord Wedgie Woo with his said track, #WEG Marshmallow Maniac. Now, the reason why in the world we decided to pick this track for this week, folks, besides the fact that it's a revamped version of his 2017 track that reminds me of something straight out of Candyland, but also because, well, it gives you a choice of using every car under the sun with the exception of utility vehicles and vans. And here's hoping in the near future that he actually adds some little marshmallow people on the side for the said track, but outside of that request, folks, the only thing we have to warn you about for this track is all of the hairpin turns and high levels on this said track where you can get knocked off to lower grounds. And yeah, if that happens, make sure you pick a car with high acceleration so you can get back into this race without skipping a beat. Only tip of advice we have for you in this race. Oh yeah, and watch out for falling cars because they can cost you during this race. And the next track that we have up, speaking of falling cars, comes from the creator Duke Sky Puncher, cool name by the way, with their said track, California GP. And this track, folks, besides it taking place inside of the golf course in Los Santos, it's a beautiful track that lets you use every car across the board with the exception of the special weapon vehicles that are included in this game. And the only tip of advice we have for you race fans out there for this said track is not only pick a car with good handling so you don't fall off it and have to restart from the last checkpoint you took, but also, and for the love of God, watch out for the obstacles that are featured in this said track. As pretty as it is, there is a couple of obstacles that are on the way, including a couple of stray palm trees that are included on this California track. But hey, what do you expect? It's California. And you know, they're gonna have some palm trees involved during some of the races. Which sort of reminds me of something from Outer Bridge Racer, if you ask me. And the last but not least track that we have up for this week comes from the creator GG Galig with his said track, GG, I'm Your G-Point NASCAR. Now, the reason why in the world we decided to pick this track for this week, folks, is because it's another one of those outside-the-box giant oval-like tracks that includes a massive wall ride that can actually overthrow your opponents with soccer balls that's placed near the tippity top of the said wall ride. That's if you could reach it. And if that can't stop your opponents, the litany list of rockets in between each checkpoint can. And the only tip of advice that we have for you race fans out there for this said track is to make sure you have eyes in the back of your head and keep your head on a swivel at all times from rocket blasts that can and will happen during this said track. And also make sure you have a car with high armor or high acceleration just in case you get blown up, which according to the Maestro is an 80% chance depending on how many people you have during this said track. And with that said, folks, wraps it up for another edition of the GTA Online Top 5 Tracks of the Week. And if any of you out there who wants to test out any of these tracks that we mentioned for this week for yourselves, you can head on over to the Rockstar Social Club page, only known as socialclub.rockstargames.com, and head directly under the playlist entitled Adventureland 2 to check it out for yourselves. And I do believe, according to what the Maestro said, you can get a cash prize bonus this week of well over $250,000, depending on how many people you bring along with you for this race-like adventure. So good luck out there, you race contestants. And I guess with that said, we might as well head back into the music once again, and when we return, we'll be back with another edition of the DJ Smokey's Great Moments in Wrestling History right after this. So don't get lost in the madness just yet, folks, and stay tuned.